it became so much more than just a name for that phase. It was, I was looking for a categorization.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Parenthood. I'm your host, Neha, and this is the space where we explore real stories of parenthood, the beautiful, the messy, and everything in between. Every week, we sit with parents who are carving their own paths, building careers, nurturing families, and often rediscovering themselves along the way. And today's episode is one that hits especially close to home because it's with someone who not only embodies the duality of raising a tiny human along with raising oneself, but has also made it her mission to help other mothers understand it. My guest today is Natasha Uppal, founder of Matrescence India, a platform that puts women's postpartum health, care, and transformation at the center of the conversation. She is also a Matrescence coach in training and a voice I have come to admire deeply for how she brings both courage and compassion into this dialogue around motherhood. Natasha is mom to Avi, who's almost 3, and partner to Nikhil, her college sweetheart, and now co parent in every sense of the word. Their story, from growing up together to growing through the challenges of early parenthood, is such a reflection of what it means to choose each other again and again, even as life keeps changing shape. Natasha, I'm so glad you're here. I've been following your work at Matrescence India for a while now, and every time I read something you write or I listen to you on one of your reels, I find myself nodding, smiling, or tearing up. Welcome to Parenthood.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. It's such a pleasure to be here. I have been a big fan of your work, of your podcast, of your
Thank
LinkedIn posts. So the admiration is definitely mutual. But thank you for that kind introduction.
Thank you. And let's start with knowing you a little more closely. If you had to describe yourself in just 3 words right now, three that capture who you are in this season of life, what would they be?
Mm, I think the first that almost the one that's been constant actually across seasons, I think, is seeker. I've
Hmm.
always kind of described myself as that, and feels more and more real with each passing year. But I think there's this constant desire to learn. There's a constant curiosity that I think I operate with. Um, so seeker is definitely one, both internally and externally. I think cycles of reflection are not uh, are very common for me. Um, I think the other might be grounded. I
Hmm.
try to. That's important for me to stay grounded. I think for just you have a young one as well. So I think it's to regulate yourself and to be able to come back to yourself and understand and know what you're doing. It's just very easy in the day to day to get lost. So for me, it's important to feel grounded, but I also try to do that through my work, remembering what I've been through, who I am, where I was, where I am, and then also just trying to find like more time with nature. So
Hmm.
then I think that would be another one. The third one I feel like is a toss up between compassionate and purpose driven, maybe, and
Hmm.
some way they feed each other. I think for as long as I can remember, I've just very much pursued everything in my life out of just passion and purpose and compassion. So
Hmm.
like it's an endeavor to try and be kind, to try and teach my son to be kind. We have this big kindness poster in just in front of his room. But I think, and that's a big part of how I've been raised. So I think compassionate would be at the center of most the way that I try to approach most interactions in my life, all interactions in my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I can vouch for that. As someone who's talked with you only a couple of times, but your kindness just shines through in every interaction that's there. And now, could you tell us a little about your family, about Avi, about Nikhil? What's life like in the Uppal Sehgal household these days?
Whew. It's fun. It's fun. Um, So my son, like you said, is nearly 3. He's a New Year baby.
Uh-huh.
So we have found ourselves, he was born and then we spent the new year in the hospital, 30th of December. So he's nearly 3, and I keep saying 3 going on 13 because there is, the need for control and negotiation and making sense of the world. It's a real joy and constant drag me up the wall, but you know how both those things go very
Yeah.
much hand in hand. Um, but it's exciting to be in his space, in his world, in his mind. So we try and like really get those moments of connection. um, that's pretty much the day to day. He goes to a full day program called Papa Goya, which is heaven sent because we both are we've been working parents and now doing Matrescence India, which is my own thing. But so that allows me some flexibility. But by and large, it's very helpful to have him go to a wonderful program like that. So that's usually the weekdays. My husband is a founder. He has started. He started a company called Zenny, and they're essentially doing financial inclusion for the population that's actually been removed from the financial systems for a very long time. So daily wage earners, people who don't really have the liquid income to be able to invest and
Right.
make money or have insurance or have any kind of financial security. They're trying to bring them in with very small amount of savings so that they can grow and have that buffer. But essentially, it's a fintech product that they're building. Um, and that's what he does in our free time. We I've gotten a lot of love for food through him, and he's a
Uh-huh.
very good cook. So and I'm vegetarian and he's not. So he will very sweetly kind of make me the veg versions of the non-vegetarian food he's making and showing and making for his friends. So I think food's a big part of our life. These days, logistics are a big part of our life, unfortunately. You know how that is. Um, but yeah, we try and we've been avid birders in another lifetime. So we've both
Right.
really enjoyed being out in nature for hours, and we clocked about 250 bird sightings or
Wow.
so, which is fairly good for a few years in. Obviously, all that came to a halt with Abhi, so I'm waiting for him to grow up when we can go back into the forest together. But that's pretty much it. New adventure every day, new lesson every day, new grounding and humbling every day. That's
Right.
us.
And you and Nikhil have this wonderful story. You've known each other since your college days, grown up together, drifted apart, and then come back to each other. How has that long history shaped your partnership as it stands today?
Oh, so much. I think considering that we've known each other now since 2007, it's
Wow.
insane. It's nearly 20 years. Um, and yeah, you're right. We have been, it's very like when Harry met Sally and Hum Tum, it's very like, okay, you go apart and you're like, okay, let's see what else is out there. And then you come back to each other and you're like, okay, it's us. We've got this. And then you've done that a few times. But like after the kid also it feels like a lifetime ago. But we've definitely, I think, always come together, always had something that kind of brought us together. And you're so right. Like I think we've really grown through every experience. I
Mm-hmm.
have to say though that the way that we, I think, respect each other, love each other, and um, try to commit to our relationship every day today as parents and in the
Yeah.
past year is different than ever before. We keep saying this to each other. We're like, actually, after Avi is, um, we had a very hard time after Avi was born. And it's so funny, Neha, because whenever I say this, and I say it because I do feel like a part of me felt like I need to just speak my truth and need to
Yeah.
just be authentic about what is happening. Because it also didn't feel like a personal failure. It felt to me like a system failure in some ways,
Yeah.
and we'll get more into that and mattresses and things like that. But when I tell people I'm just like, we had such a rough time after Avi was born, even though we've been together for so long. We've been together through ups and downs and everything that life threw at us. But that really shook us. to the core. And we've healed and repaired, and I think it's a work in progress. And a big part of that has been still choosing each other through very, very, very difficult moments where honestly, I didn't know if I could or we could. But we built ourselves back stronger. And that's kind of where we are today. And interestingly, chronologically, we had Abhi, and the first month was just bliss. It was lovely and blissful, and we were just so in sync, all three of us. And my mom, both our sets of parents live in Delhi, so my mom had come. We have a wonderful nanny who's been with us throughout. So she was our, kind of hired village, and the first month was bliss, and then he got back to work, and I got more and more exhausted with each passing day. Avi wasn't sleeping very well. I till date don't know if I was sleeping well those months, whether things would have unfolded the same way or not. It's such a big thing.
Yeah.
But going back to that, I think come month two, month three, things just really started spiraling. We tried to have conversations, and we just weren't really being able to make progress. So it was super hard. And I think around month six, month seven, postpartum is when our couples therapist actually, and I had gotten us into therapy in our ninth month of pregnancy. I don't know what got into me. I'm a big believer anyway in professionals supporting you the way that only they know how in every field. I think professionals who you can't be everything all at once, and you don't know everything. So and mental health especially, no stranger to therapy and working through things. So I was like, it seems to me like this is. I'd heard from another friend of mine before that, it is a shit show for your relationship after you have a child. So that somewhere stuck, and that was like 8 years ago. But that just stuck in my head, and I was like, let's get some support. Let's just make sure we have someone. And we got this wonderful, wonderful therapist who we're still with in our ninth month. She is the one who first, around 6 months postpartum, was like, Natasha, you don't seem okay. Like you just like she was able to pick up on very subtle things that even in that moment, like I couldn't tell, my partner, no one around us could really tell. And then that one thing led to another, and I really did feel like I need help, I need support. And one thing led to another. Was fortunate to find an excellent um, support system in professionals, which I say that I note that because it's not common. I was very, very lucky to be able to get a good perinatal mental health specialist, got diagnosed with postpartum depression, and got the support I needed. I was freaked out about medication. I was breastfeeding. How do you do this? How do you navigate this? But I knew that I wasn't able to manage.
Yeah.
And Neha, it's a bit funny not being able to manage because you're actually still managing. You're doing everything. Like I was breastfeeding, and I was awake, and I was taking care of my child. And I actually held two things very close together throughout my postpartum, even till today. I think, and this process has taught me that contradictions do exist, and it's never black and white. But I was so connected with my child. I was so happy being a mother. I was in my element when I was with him. He could regulate me like nothing else. And still, I felt like an empty shell. It's such an interesting thing because, in our society, we oversimplify it, right? Because if you got the first, then you can't possibly be depressed. And if you're depressed, it means you aren't connected with your child, and you just really, and for me, that wasn't the case at all. Like that both of these things existed because there was so much more going on. And of course, all of that led to where I am today and starting Matrescence India. But I think getting that help, getting that support, feeling like, okay, I have to just do this for myself, um, was a very, very, I think strong starting point. And since then, even up till that point, I would say I spent a long time sitting in that dark room, contact napping my child. I contact napped for like 4 months straight. And it's the kind of quiet that you just don't get in your life. I say this often that there are very few things in your life where you will get a chance to reset, where you will get a chance to really question your beliefs and question who you are, who you've become, what your autopilot is. And I really think COVID was one of those. I feel like it was one of those experiences, and of course, something that I don't hope happens again.
Yeah.
But it did really make you question some things, make you question the way you're living your life and your choices and your health and just different things, right? And to me, I think pregnancy was the other one, or like postpartum rather was the other one, because those 4 months of sitting in the room, contact napping with him, thinking about my experience, thinking about the isolation, the loneliness, like the dots just weren't connecting. So I was like, I'm going through this, but it's not something we talk about. And I think this is important to say. I'm an early childhood development specialist. I have worked academically, professionally in supporting low income families on both gender programming, so very, very acutely aware of gender dynamics, what takes place, what biases, what discrimination is, opportunities, agency. Very closely worked on those things and tried to build those for communities in policy and also early childhood development. So, what is it that children need in their earliest years? Their brain development, what takes place, what is secure attachment, what is nurturing care. I was very well versed in these things,
Yeah.
which why I think it hit me harder because I entered postpartum feeling very confident. I was fortunate to have a very by and large empowered pregnancy. There was a lot of innate. I feel like I still don't know where it came from per se, but maybe a little bit of reading, maybe some conversation somewhere. But I came moved to Bangalore when the week we were moving to Bangalore is the week we found out that we're pregnant
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And I always said that I will not have and raise a baby in Delhi. So the universe was like, okay, you're going to Bangalore. I was moving here for work. We figured we'd have a baby sometime in the coming year. We'll build our community and then we'll have a baby in this new city. But it all just like happened really, really fast. So we found out we were pregnant and we moved here. And I went to some maternity hospitals and it just didn't sit well with me. It felt like such a business. I kept getting calls to book a
Yeah.
bed, and I kept being treated by the gynecologist like there's something wrong. This is fairly early on, like early second trimester, where I was being discouraged from traveling for work. When I was being so. In my head, I was like, okay, you know what? The way that this pregnancy is being approached is very much this is risky until proven otherwise.
Right.
And I was like, that just doesn't add up because it really did start to feel to me like my body knew what it was doing. I was, it seemed good. And then I moved to Astrika Midwife Center, found out about it, found my way to Astrika Midwifery Center, um, and started by Dr. Janvi Nilakani, who's a firm believer in mother first um, childbirth and putting moms first and moms and children being as important, which it sounds like such a like duh obviously, but it's
Yeah.
just not the case. That's not
Yeah.
how our medical system is. But it was a lot more. It's like you're not just the vessel. Your needs matter, your choices matter, your information matters. We will give you the information. I had a birth plan. My entire labor was guided by midwives. A gynecologist came in only when she needed to. She asked me for explicit permission to do any kind of intervention. I had an unmedicated birthing experience. I describe my birthing experience as meditative a lot of times, and people think I am crazy. But here's the thing that we are birth trauma is very real and it
Yeah.
happens so commonly that we've accepted that as the only way to give birth.
Yeah.
And again, more on that later. But for me, pregnancy, childbirth ended up being empowering in some sense, and I was it was good. I was like, I've got this. And like I was saying, in the medical society where it was all like, or in the conventional medical hospitals where it was like risky until proven otherwise, Astrika and everything I was reading was giving me, and my own experience, my own like kind of connection with my body was telling me that it's actually normal until proven otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason for it to be, otherwise your body is doing. And I remember my doula, Neha, another fantastic support system. Um, she asked me this once during one anxious phase in my third trimester. She was like, Natasha, what have you done to grow this baby? What are you? I think I was talking to her about my fear of birthing, because the closer you get to it, you're like, okay, but can I do it? It feels really like it could be hard. I think there's just natural expected anxiety around that. And she was like, Natasha, what have you done to really grow the baby so far? And I was like, I eat healthy and I'm exercising and and she was like, yeah, exactly. That's bare minimum. Your body is really, really doing most of it. Your body knows what that child needs at what point of time. This child now has a nose and ears and feet and toes, and you have had nothing to do with actually orchestrating that beyond giving your body the supplements that it needs.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the beginning of this thing that I feel like is going to be a program or a book or a blog or something, which is basically called From Fear to Faith, because it gave me so much faith that, and then the subsequent birthing journey gave me so much faith in the inherent, innate wisdom of our bodies, the ancient wisdom of our bodies. There is actually so much. It's also really helped me sort of break up with my relationship of control. And we all do grow up, and parenting, of course, teaches you a lot about distancing yourself from this need for control, because there really isn't. Inevitably, when you have an important meeting, your child is going to fall sick, and when it's your first day of work, as it happened with me, your child is going to be up all night. So you don't control anything. You just go with the flow and you do your best. But that was when, like, at least for my I just learned to surrender to my body, and I learned to really listen to its cues. And I think it really helped me with birth as well. And we as people, and of course, that took me to a journey of even realizing how disconnected I was somatically. So my healing, just I always thought, oh yeah, I've been in therapy forever, read so much, I meditate, I've done Vipassana, I am so well connected. And I realized how disconnected I am from my own body when it came to just the sorts of things it's holds, or being able to tap into how I'm feeling in my body. So, of course, that whole mind body connection, today I just have a lot more respect for. And I also, an interesting, sorry, I'm just like in this
Please, please.
flow of like, there's just, I can go on about this topic so much. But I think another interesting thing, along with that respect for my body, came the permission that I gave myself to rest. Because I realized that I actually don't listen to my body at all. Most women don't, right? We just push through, we power through. And of course, this wasn't the whole reason, and there were many factors. But I today unapologetically just rest when I need to. And it feels like a huge liberation. It feels like this huge kind of statement. And, it kind of is. I've grown up watching a mother who just never rested, she just do. And I think we all have seen many versions of that woman. We were many versions of that woman. So yeah, I think I don't even know where we started this conversation. But that's kind of where it is, and it's been a lot of learning naturally. And it's the healing from the, like, if I were just to go back to the postpartum depression, right? Because like I said, I had the support. I did get on medication. It was a very, very, for any mother to do anything at all at that, and no matter how empowered and all of those things we might be, you will think a million times before doing anything that could affect your child, right? And the idea of having that medication and breastfeeding, what it would do, I just poured over every research that existed, spoke to as many therapists and psychiatrists as I could, and it was unanimous that the impact on my child of my poor mental health is so much more, and on myself. And I want to underline and on myself, because I'm not just a means to an end. I'm not just a means to my child's well-being. But the impact both on me, my experience, as well as my child, is far more significant than the impact of that medication.
Yeah.
We started it slowly. I was very fortunate to actually be able to respond to a low dose, relatively lower dose. And it really, really helped. And slowly, over a year and a half, picked up the pieces, but not before hitting rock bottom. And I think that rock bottom is what really, really helped me do so many things, Neha. Honestly, I just feel like when we talk about transformation and becoming, I just really, really do that. Like I think all moms do. I think it's different
Yeah.
in the way we're allowed to express it or process it or discuss it. For sure, there is this massive, metamorphosis. Um, but for me, it it broke. It was like this kind of forced reflection. Finding myself feel very, very lonely and isolated.
Yeah.
And I a lot of this stuff, of course, is coming. I'm doing the Matrescence course, the
Yeah.
certification, and it's a wonderful program by Amy Taylor Kavaz. She is a pioneer in matrescence education. She runs a program called Mama Rising in Australia,
Yeah.
and I will be the first coach trained by that program in India, and it's super exciting because I think we are very much poised for that change with
Yeah.
the conversations you are having, the conversations I've been having with moms. But that program has coursework, which is very confronting. It is,
Yeah.
it will make you really go really deep because if tomorrow you want to help other mothers, you have to really have gone through your own. And that's why some of this is very top of mind for me because I am constantly right now parallelly processing my own past
Yeah.
3 years. Um, but when it comes to the the four big things that I think I was able to dismantle to be who I am today, which
Yeah.
I kind of almost like want to scream from rooftops and be like,
Yeah.
hey, moms, if this resonates, maybe this can be helpful to you. I think the first is our understanding of productivity. Uh,
Yeah.
Productivity is inherently capitalistic and patriarchal. And I spent the first 6 months of my pregnancy, just of my postpartum, feeling so useless. I was like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? You're used to accolades, you're used to validation, and you're like, I have done nothing today. I
Hmm.
also unfortunately read this article which said, and there isn't a dearth of these articles, unfortunately, but sometime in my pregnancy, I think I read this article which was like, oh, postpartum is the best time for you to start your passion project. I was like, yeah, that's me. I am an overachiever, sure, like, great, I will have time away from work. Anyway, people call it maternity break. So, I will start my passion project. And there's no dearth of passion projects in my head ever.
Hmm.
So I was like, great. And I bought the URL for Matrescence India like in my second or third month of
Wow.
postpartum. As soon as I like learned the word, and it's an interesting story of how I learned the word as well. But I was like, I don't care. I'm doing this. I'm buying the URL. This is me manifesting. And now we're like 2 years later when I'm actually doing something about it. Maybe even nearly 3 years later. Um, but yes, backtracking, dismantling productivity. I spent every day being like, I have achieved nothing today. I have done
Hmm.
nothing today. I have not been able to read anything or do anything or contribute meaningfully to any adult conversation or proven my worth in some way. It's easier for me to say this in a mocking way right now. Back
Yeah.
then, when you're in it, it feels very real, right? Um, and I had a friend once just tell me that, hey, listen, just listen to yourself. Stop. You have kept a child alive and well
Yeah.
and healthy using your own mind and body, which is that's enormous. And it really did stop me in my tracks. It's so simple. It's not like I didn't know that. I also professionally advocate for the importance of care work, Neha. Like I go out there and I talk on panels and conferences about like the importance of us valuing care work.
Yeah.
And I was not doing that at all. And I was
Yeah.
also feeling extremely I was feeling very devalued, and by people around me. But naturally, also, as a result of that, somewhere you don't really also tell yourself that what you're doing is important work. So, thankfully, that whole idea of what is productivity, rest being productive,
Yeah.
your with your child being productive, your connection with your child. I mean, those things really, like, I think that one big thing. The other was like the focus on myself. I think I've always
Mm-hmm.
been someone who's always had a very external focus towards, as an example, our relationship, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think a lot of times women end up being the people in a heterosexual relationship to be like, okay, this isn't working, that's not working, let's work through this, let's talk about this. You kind of
Yeah.
take that intellectual mental load. And I have been doing that my whole relationship, unlike many, many, many women. And those 2 years postpartum, I just stopped. I didn't stopped more because I just didn't have the bandwidth,
Yeah.
and I only had the bandwidth to focus on myself. And through again many other things, it's not very like black and white, but I somehow just fully shifted the focus to myself. In some ways, I think maybe I even gave up on our marriage, which is why I was like, look, you gotta just love yourself, take care of yourself, be there for yourself, because I needed those things. Um, and again, like, I want a caveat there is that I think a lot of couples in this will understand, and a lot of other people might not. But it's rarely ever black and white in terms of like the way I'm presenting this right now could
Yeah.
make it seem like, oh, my husband completely abandoned me and was not
Yeah.
there, which is
Yeah.
not the case. He was really trying to. He is a wonderful father.
Hmm.
He was also really struggling to figure out what the hell is happening to his wife and his own
Yeah.
identity shift. Uh,
Yeah.
it's and my first workshop that I've designed is a postpartum preparation for couples, because men today are just so much more willing and wanting to
Yes.
be a equal part of that unit. But they have no blueprint, no framework. It's a lot for women to take on the mental load of motherhood and manage their own matrescence, as well as handhold their husbands into figuring out what is needed to support them. So I think we experienced that a lot with him not really knowing how to be there for me,
Yeah.
trying and not, and I mean, the first few years of, I think, parenthood just really bring up a lot about your own um, traumas, for the lack of a
Mm.
better word. I don't want to use that lightly, but in a lot of ways, you go back to who you are, how you were raised, what your defense mechanisms are, how you navigate things. Um, so yeah, I mean, just to say that it wasn't for a lack of trying on his part.
Yeah.
Um, it, but it did. The distance and the chasm was enough and wide enough for me to be like, I just got to do this for myself. Not once did I think that we are ending this marriage.
Yeah.
Very much like in this moment, with me pouring everything I have um, toward my son, I will pour a little bit to myself, or like divide it between the both of us, because that's what I have the capacity to do. That really was the most transformative, and I'm not recommending it because it requires you to go very rock bottom. And one of my missions with Matrescence is that you don't have to hit rock bottom without you realizing, for you to realize and grow through the process. Um, but I think the focus on myself, the ability to love myself, I honestly, Neha, don't think that I ever unconditionally loved myself. I don't think that
Mm.
I ever I've always had a very unkind voice in my head.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unlike a lot of women, I've always been hard on myself. It's always been about achieving more, doing more, being ambitious, proving myself. Um, and somehow that insecurity, it really did just cease to exist. I mean, that's maybe a stretch. It comes.
Yeah. Yeah. But you get the point. Yeah.
Exactly. It helped me connect with myself. It helped me love myself. I was also able to distance my self-worth from money, which is again
Mm.
related to productivity, related to how women
Wow.
like us who are ambitious are like, okay, my self-worth is tied to how much money I'm able to make, and I want to make money, and I have no issues with saying that, never have had. And I'm also from the development sector, so that it's another level to be able to say that in the development sector that you want to make money, and I know you know what I mean, because you're just supposed to do it out of the goodness of your heart. Um, but the whole leap to starting Matrescence India. And not just externally being like, oh, it'll be okay, and internally feeling insecure. I genuinely am like, I owe this to myself, and I have immense privilege to be able to do this. To be
Yes.
able to take, I don't take that lightly at all. Very, very cognizant of the fact that I've had that privilege, but also along with that privilege, perhaps that privilege always existed, the permission to do it
Mm.
and to not feel like, oh, what is this going to mean for me and my family, and what is it going to be about me and my value vis-a-vis my partners, or
Yeah.
anything like that, I think growing up in middle class households, everyone does have like a complicated relationship with money. And as a woman especially, I at least definitely had I put a lot of pressure on myself to be financially independent. It was important to me as a woman to be financially independent.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the self worth and financial independence, giving yourself that distance space, and finally, I think external validation. I really did always rely on external validation, and this is such a funny, not well, funny. I don't know about funny, but it's an interesting anecdote because um, it hit me one day like a light bulb. Like it was such a
Mm-hmm.
epiphany where in early postpartum, like I said, I'm an early childhood development specialist. So when I entered postpartum, I I was like, I've got this. I know what the child needs: secure attachment, nurturing care, love, security. I know exactly at what stage, what milestone. So all of those things that a lot of moms and parents are anxious over, legitimately so, because again, those are not common knowledge. I was like, okay, I got this. And so two parts here. Sorry, you will see when you get into my brain that there are all of these 50 tabs open, so feel free to pull me back. But one, that's what actually hit me hard as well, because I entered postpartum being like, I'm very confident about my mothering. And I realized that I know how to take care of my child very well, and I don't know how to take care of myself at all.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
actually the seed of everything. I was like so blindsided and so hit and like, just like literally just engulfed by these waves. I was like, oh, holy shit, like, did not even cross my mind to think about how to take care of
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
So of course, that's the big thing. Um, but on the external validation side, I actually really knew innately that I'm doing a great job with my son. Um, I was like, he's happy, he's healthy. I just had this really beautiful self confidence, which is alien. Okay, like it's great because it's not something I felt in a lot of spheres. Imposter syndrome again, lots of us struggle. But with this, I was like, I've got this. I can see how much I'm pouring into this.
Yeah.
How hard I'm working, how much I'm ensuring that I am not only like well read about it, I can see the results. I'm very in tune with him and his needs, and etc. etc. Sorry, I'm just going to plug in the charger. But then everyone around me, like it kind of feels when you're in that slowness of early postpartum that the world is spinning madly on.
Yeah.
Everyone else is just doing their thing, right? And no one, including the people closest to me, was stopping to acknowledge that, was stopping to be like, hey man, great job. Neha, like when as a postpartum mom, for the first time, when you change your child's diaper while they're sleeping without waking them up,
Yeah.
oh my God. I was like, oh, party, let's like pop some champagne. This is like
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, where are the drum
around.
rolls?
Yeah, we're like, hey, hi, where is my, yeah, exactly, where is my award? And so like there's so many small wins as
Yeah.
a mom, and or even as a father. So then you just look around and you're like, okay, no one's really stopping to. But like one day as an epiphany, I was like, if when I know that I'm doing a really, really good job with my child, and this is not, it was beautiful because it wasn't in comparison to anyone else. It was just about like
Yeah.
I wanted to do and what I was able to do, and knowing how much I'm doing um, along with taking care of myself, like, so whatever was my own metric,
Yeah.
nothing external, but I was like, okay, I'm happy with the way that I am mothering. I'm happy with the way that I'm trying to take care of myself, but there's no one around that's
Yeah.
acknowledging that. So what is to say that at any other point in my life or any other work I've ever done where I've had so much of an emphasis on other people telling me that it was good work, that's valid. Like that, you know what
Wow.
I mean? It was just such a
Yeah.
instant. It was like, wait, here where I know that I'm doing a great job and no one's telling me, I can still be certain that I'm doing a good job because I like innately believe that. I can breathe it, I can live it, I can know it. But all other times in my life, so I was just like, it's a very unreliable, like external validation and externally people stopping and noticing and looking and even making space in their mind to acknowledge a lot of what you're doing, is just very unreliable. And
Yeah.
so instantly I was like, okay, I'm my best barometer. And I know I'm making it sound like such a huge, profound thing, and maybe other people reach that or go through it or already know it. But for me, as someone who has struggled with dependency on external validation, it's been the best thing that happened to me because I
Yeah.
just can trust that inner voice now, which
Yeah.
couldn't before.
Yeah, yeah. And you have also spoken about, working on a caregiver support program for low income communities during that time. So you were witnessing what other mothers go through while living your own struggle, so to say. Uh, did that tell you something, in this epiphanous form only, that about the state of maternal support in India today?
100%. What a great question. Because I was fortunate in some ways, I think, to be doing like being a mother, living that journey myself,
Yeah.
or having access to people from a similar socioeconomic background than me, also mothering alongside and working on a low income, working with several low income communities in North India to try and support them. And interestingly, on both ends, even though that's what I was doing professionally, Neha, I personally was so, obviously just taken aback by the lack of support. I just joined some, I don't know, some like crazy amount of WhatsApp groups.
Hmm.
Anyone who would advertise a mother's WhatsApp group, I would join it because I was by then like, and this is early postpartum. I was like, I just need to research what's happening with mothers in this country, and
Right.
therefore it was of course my own experience. It was the low income families I was working with and designing for, and then there was these 300 plus women who were across these WhatsApp groups going through their own tier one, tier two, tier three. So it was like literally in front of me, this whole status of women in India.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was enormous because it transcends economic backgrounds. There,
Hmm.
women are just not supported across the board. It manifests differently, as do most, if not all, gender bias, gender discrimination. It exists across the board, manifests differently. But it was very clear that the women that I was with, and I actually did an entire survey there as well, um, to understand their maternal well-being. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, this is I feel like almost separate episode altogether, or a chat altogether, but very interesting stuff about how much we internalize, um, and again, transcends economic backgrounds, but like we internalize the sacrifice and martyrdom of motherhood.
Yeah.
Most of the women that I worked with, they were very isolated, and these are women who had even older kids. They didn't even know
Mm.
their neighbors, right? Because they were so caught up in the everyday mothering, and that takes a big toll on your mental health naturally. Multiple children. Um, how do you even begin to think about responsive caregiving when you are basically like just help making ends meet? You
Yeah.
can't. Such a terrible expectation for us to go and tell these mothers or these families that, hey, this is play-based learning and this is quite
Yeah.
important for your child, and not really look at the fact that this is like one tiny room with six kids, and actually, like a lot of the things, if you just look at the nurturing care framework by WHO, right? Like things like a safe environment, things like the things that we just take for granted, right?
Yeah.
Um, The most basic things are not possibly things that they can resolve at that time. And in fact, that's why like the program that we were doing was entirely about that. It was about saying that caregiving support is great and giving support on better early childhood education is great, but you need a layer of financial resilience above that. So with all of these families, we were actually working with them very closely to help them access welfare schemes that
Mm-hmm.
help their family, give them that buffer. And a lot of them were eligible. The thing with welfare schemes in our country is that most people who are eligible don't know about it.
Yes.
If they know about it, or even if they don't have documentation. It has just such stringent loops to hoops to kind of cross to get that benefit. That if it's a person who's deciding between losing a day's wage and going and standing in line for
Yeah.
something that may not happen, of course I'm going to go and get my day's wage, right? My kids need to eat at night. So the whole web of we were five organizations doing this together. The whole web of getting them to the welfare access, getting them to livelihoods which can actually help their income increase. Like, so if mothers are able to put some time into this, what is things like tailoring at home? Can we give them assets that help them become a dual income household so that they can have a little bit of security for their children? And then, of course, through that, giving them community, which is huge. So again, one of those things
Yeah.
that community, the importance of other people going through that early parenting journey across different socioeconomic backgrounds, so important. One of the most unexpected and reliable sources of support for me that happened was these women, most of whom, some of whom I've still never met.
Hmm.
But who in those moments of like spiraling at 3 a.m. were just there for me. Like it's this beautiful world, I feel
Yeah.
like, of
Yeah.
call it in a beautiful way and in a rageful way. I
Yeah.
sometimes call it like this secret club that you
Yeah.
enter with a mom, where you're like giving each other these secret looks and you're like, I,
Mhm.
you look at each other and you're like, yeah, I haven't slept either. Or like, it's like, oh, sleep training, okay. Like, you're just, there are these things, you're the secret club. So part of me is like, oh, how beautiful, because I'm all for like women, female communities, like just completely, like brighten me up. But then at the same time, I'm like, it should not be this parallel secret community, it should just be common knowledge. But coming back to this, so much to say on what's happening around, what's happening with mothers across the country.
Yeah.
Um, an interesting thing that I'll kind of just highlight is how much we internalize, like I was saying, the martyrdom and the sacrifice, and just feeling like motherhood is our role.
Yeah.
Um, and in the communities I was working with, interestingly, in a survey where I asked them, so we had a control group and we had the intervention group naturally. So we asked the intervention group and the control group, what do you feel like you're supported in your mothering? Do you feel like you have the emotional support? Or do you feel overwhelmed? So these were some of those questions, right? Across the board, the women who had been a part of the intervention actually said that they felt less supported, that they felt more overwhelmed. And the people in the control group who didn't have the intervention were like, yep, we're supported. We don't feel overwhelmed. And interestingly, someone who was looking at that data was asking me, like, oh, wait, doesn't that mean then that your intervention didn't really help? Or, like, they don't, like the other people seem fine. And I was like, no, this is how internalized our roles are. The fact
Mm.
that the women we worked with are today being able to find that agency somewhere to say, hey, I need help, I'm
Yeah.
drowning, um, is enormous. And interestingly, something you would think that people with autonomy, with agency, people who generally had a control over their lives like we have, would be like that. And interestingly, I was at Manotsav this weekend, and one of the questions on the maternal health panel was exactly that. And it's puzzled me for a long time, and I have my own theories. Why is it that women with so much autonomy and agency still defer to everything else but their own kind of, to science, knowledge, wisdom when it comes to this journey? Why
Mm-hmm.
just give up all of that agency and autonomy when it comes to their pregnancy, postpartum, and, a motherhood journey? Um, and anyway, so this is some of how all of that came together. But it also for me just was just incredibly compelling because I was seeing with among the most privileged There were stories, Neha, of how as soon as the child is born, the father is just checked out. And is like, some cases where fathers were jealous of the baby, being like, "Oh, you have no time for me," telling the mother that. I know it sounds insane, but it's so true. Some cases where father-in-laws, I'm telling you specific cases, I'm
Yeah.
general, but of course these are anecdotes. This is anecdotal evidence, which now I've spoken to enough people to know that it's quite pervasive.
Yeah.
Father-in-laws, or like, generally people in the society, sort of belittling you for having a C-section, taking the
Hmm.
easy route. I'm sorry. How does anyone, except the fact that you have the audacity to pass judgment and comment as a male of another generation, and I'm talking about that one specific. Oh man, it makes me so angry, as you can see.
Yeah.
Who are you? You have never, made a baby, birthed a baby, to for you to, like, on behalf of all of these women who were at like the, and I say this often, if I think about the spectrum when I've heard of these cases, I'm actually fairly in the middle, or even toward the better, like definitely toward the better part of empowerment and agency, or being able to navigate some of this stuff. My rage and my motivation for all of this really just comes from looking at that whole spectrum, because
Yeah.
it is unreal. Being jealous because your wife is not having physical relationships with you after the child, immediately after the child. Like, is that even, like, you clearly don't at all understand what's happening in her body, right? Being shamed for C-sections, being told, being shamed either way,
Yeah.
and you're going to work and that's not okay. You're staying at home and that's not okay. Oh man, the whole thing drives me crazy, because
Yeah.
there is experiences, which we aren't allowed to talk about, and historically, we just are like, okay, just stay invisible during that time. Everything needs to be prefaced with, "I love my child."
Yeah. But
That's my very but I do love my. I mean, I
yeah.
hate that. Of course, like, we love our child. That shouldn't be something that we need to say. We should be
Yeah.
able to. And you know that a lot of Matrescence India is about bringing those stories and being able to highlight and spotlight the fact that this is truly, really what happens.
Yeah.
Along with science, now we have, thankfully, finally, a little bit more than we did a decade ago, let's say, about what's happening in women's brains and bodies, right? Hormonally, and the brain changes, and how mommy brain is a superpower and not like absolute, mockery.
Yeah.
But these things we now know. So putting those together and being able to just have it be common knowledge is, if I can somewhere do it in my lifetime, that also feels very long. Like, if I can do it in a few years somehow. Can you imagine? Like, we've both been through it, right? Like, can you imagine? I think of it as like, it's like you have these apps, okay? Like, suppose if parenting and working and going back to work and sleep training, or your child's sleep or their play or their school, whatever, any of these, if you look at them as individual apps, and Matrescence being the underlying operating
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
we are still very much just focusing on glitches in an app
Yes.
versus mother's Matrescence experience. And that experience of Matrescence, we know there is enough evidence out there that experience of Matrescence, and how supported you are, how understood you are, how enabled you are to live that transition on your own terms, or even grow through it, determines just it determines everything. And we just pretend like it doesn't exist. It's like being in the middle of a storm, a raging storm and hail and everything else, and you're like, "Oh, what a beautiful, balmy, sunny day." So lovely, and uh, so yeah.
Yeah.
But
And you've been speaking of matrescence. I've been speaking of matrescence, but for our listeners who don't know what is matrescence, tell us what is it?
yeah, of course. So I think easiest way to understand it is matrescence like adolescence. So
Hmm.
what? what adolescence is for adulthood, when children kind of go through these enormous changes in their body, in their mind, and become adults through the process of adolescence. It's very similar to mothers or to women going through a transition to become mothers,
Yeah.
right? So, and that is called matrescence. It is a very, very real developmental stage where your brain actually shifts. It is beautiful. It is evolutionary brilliance. Your brain will rearrange for you to be able to focus on the care and need of your child. You will be hyper vigilant. A lot of the anxiety, unfortunately, comes from that as well. But it is all to equip you to be that caregiver that you need to be. And interestingly, side note, like I said, Neha, there are like 50 thoughts ping ponging in my head at all points of time. But side note, it isn't just mothers who can achieve that level of neural recalibration. Even partners, even fathers,
Yeah.
who or non-birthing partners, if you want, in a heterosexual relationship, who have nurturing caregiving as close as the mother, if you are as responsive to your child, you too can experience those shifts in your brain. That's the beauty of it. It's how, and now we have science that shows that. Coming back, Matrescence changes your brain, it changes your body, it changes the way that you relate with everything around you. It shifts your identity significantly. It is a very, very real developmental stage. It is not something we should gloss over. It is not something that only happens to a few women and not to everybody. It definitely happens to everybody. It happens also to women who have adopted or through surrogacy become mothers, of course, in different ways. There may be some things which are more pronounced than others. And it's not something that only lasts for a few months or even a few years. It really differs. There are, if you want to look at it in terms of research, I can tell you experientially and anecdotally, some mothers say that it lasts for them throughout their lifetime, because you are actually navigating what it means to be a mother differently at every stage of your child's life. And so, in some sense, it lasts a lifetime, but there are studies that show that it can last up to 8 years. Um, so, yeah, that is matrescence, and I really feel like it is the missing lens when we look at maternal health. If we understood matrescence, then our 6 week checks would be a lot more 6 week postpartum checks, right? For those
Yeah.
people, I think the people listening to this who are mothers, please reflect and think about what was asked to you in your 6 week check. Did you have any questions around your mental health, around your, I mean, yeah, so I think that the way that healthcare, workplaces, homes all come together to support the mother is very much contingent on how we understand mattresses.
Yeah. And what does it mean to you now, matrescence, not as a concept, but as something that you've lived through?
It's so hard for me to separate it as, like you said, like a concept versus like just such deep truth.
Mm.
I am very much still in that matrescence journey.
Yeah.
And I think such a good question. To me today, it's interestingly, it feels very, it feels like different parts of my life kind of came together to this, like, you know, like, um, to this culmination almost. Like I've worked on gender before,
Mm-hmm.
very attuned to gender and dynamics and feminism. Um, Studied it, worked on it. I've worked on early childhood development. What does the child need, education-wise, developmentally? And then I experienced motherhood, and then I'm also a sociologist. So as a sociologist looking at all of this, so it just kind of feels like I have been chasing this question around what helps women and children thrive. That's been
Yeah.
like a purpose in my professional endeavors and personal to an extent as well. I'm very passionate about adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress. So that's where perinatal mental health and, in some part, perinatal mental health and infant and child mental health also come together, which eventually is something I want to bring into this. Um, but therefore, to me, matrescence is like this. Like I said, it's the missing lens. It has been to experience that I've always wanted to be a mother. I have
Mm-hmm.
always wanted children. now it's after going through the intensity of it all and thinking about the support systems that exist, don't exist, I am very much in that cusp of like second child, yes, no, it's like every week I'm like ping ponging and be like, oh, but he's so cute and so interesting. And then I'm like, oh, but can I, realistically, can my body and mind take that? So anyway, that's a personal journey. But to me, Matrescence is like very much like this mission. It's like it's very much my mission is I call it mission dinner table conversation. I will not rest till Matrescence's dinner table conversation. I had this one experience of actually sitting on the dining table with a very close friend who asked me, how are you doing? This is roughly around 7, 8 months postpartum. And I began to like tell a slightly authentic version. And him, with all his best intention, he's still one of my closest friends, really didn't know how to react. And he kind of glossed over and just wasn't able to fully. And it broke my heart to see him struggle to kind of be there for me in some ways, but then also for me to have to self censor
Yeah.
what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Just sharing it is really, really important. And that happened several times. So,
Yeah.
which is why it's like, dinner table conversation. Sorry, again, Neha, I digress, but how many of us have heard of our mothers' pregnancy experiences, postpartum experiences? It's a complete, all of these things are just shoved under the rug like they didn't happen, like they don't exist. Women who have 2 children, 3 children, my mom in law has 3 children, it is a significant part of your life that you spent
Yeah.
in that sense, and we don't talk about it. It's just and don't tell me that it wasn't life changing in some ways, because I'm sure it was, right? And maybe you had the tools and the resources and the network to process it, maybe you didn't, but it still was something.
Yeah.
And now, if there is a significant part of your life that you are really experiencing in that transition, and you're not allowed to talk about it at all, you don't think that you can talk about it. I only started hearing about these things from anyone who's ever been a mother in whispers when I became pregnant.
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm hearing about, like I said, like the secret club, the world's best kept secret, that we whisper to each other. It is anatomical, it is biological, it is the fundamental nucleus of everything. Our
Yeah.
economies run on mother's labor. Our economies run on children, on people who grow up to be adults. Our workplaces run on it. And I've written a piece about this as well. And I just feel like everything in a country needs to be centered on nurturing. I call it nurturing nation.
Yeah.
But because nothing runs without it. Like you need mothers to be better supported. They are just the center of everything. And it's really, we've as a society globally come to be very okay with it being something that, it's a few years, it's okay. Like we've just been okay with accepting that the suffering is a part of it, the
Yeah.
struggles are a part of it. You kind of gloss over it with, oh, but it doesn't last. And it doesn't last. It does not last for a long time. I agree. The contradictions are all there. They do grow up so fast. Every time I think about it, not a cliche, but oh my God, you are so big compared to yesterday. They do. And I want to share.
Yeah.
I get it. But one does not negate the other. You can still have both of those things happening. So yeah, I feel like I've forgotten where we started as well.
But okay, tell me that you have said that you have called your professional pivot a byproduct of motherhood. I find that so clear, so fearless. What did you leave behind from your pre-mother self, and what new part of you emerged?
Oh, I think that I have now crossed over to being very, very comfortable and confident in where I am today in terms of.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're asking, like the past year has been hard because it has meant actually letting go of something I worked my whole life toward. And like I was saying, right, like my identity was very much, that smile tells me that you like it, like that you do
Yeah.
like what I'm talking about. Um, Even when I was in my job, like I said, I have loved the work I have done. I have always followed my passion. I've been very privileged to work with some great organizations and great people. But somewhere even then, I wouldn't dwell on it, but somewhere towards the end of that, it kept also feeling like I'm following someone else's template. Um, like as an ambitious woman, as like a go-getter, it was just like, okay, I gotta be this person and I gotta create change in some way. It was always about change, it was always about impact, but the template of that was always someone else's. And therefore it
Yeah.
didn't feel as authentic. I didn't know it at that time as clearly as I do today, but something felt amiss. And I struggled with that because when you're in it, this is like 15 years and a lot of studying, a lot of professional achievements or even just milestones that you are a little bit giving up on when you're pivoting,
Yeah.
because you can build on those. So there was maybe a little bit of fear, but I'd be lying, and I don't know, maybe I'm fortunate and I don't want to diminish the importance of that pivot, but somehow for me suddenly it just was very clear. And I think it was those smaller things that suddenly one day when it came time to choose, how it happened. I was actually in that one day, I had two conversations. I had a conversation with my existing organization, figuring out a role. My program had ended. We were figuring out pivoting the role. We were discussing the new role. And I was like, given my background, I can do this. Theoretically, everything here, I can do. And so I was trying to rationalize and make myself believe that, that's kind of where my next step is in the organization. And then in the afternoon, I was having a conversation with someone similar to this on Matrescence.
Mm-hmm.
I just ended the day being so clear. I was like, it didn't like the way that the second conversation like just uplifted me and literally like brought light, and it just felt so authentic. It felt so clear. A friend once told me this, like, I think we get very used to struggle. Partly, I
Yeah.
guess, we're in India and there's competition and there's all sorts of things. Um, we get very used to everything that we want needing to be faced with resistance.
Mm-hmm.
You get used to feeling there needs to be friction. Okay, like I'm doing this job interview and I really, really want it. And I did the interview and it felt hard and it felt like I needed to prepare a lot and I needed to like really struggle and everything. And she was just like, actually things that come in flow are really the ones that are attracting us to them. And again, I know this is all like I said, perhaps some people have reached that level of, profound, authentic living. But for me, I think today, the way that I can feel when I'm talking about matrescence, the way that I can feel inherently, like just the belief and the push to do this, I actually do feel fearless. Not to say because I really believe in it, and I'm also I believe in it enough to be like, if it doesn't end up being where I want it to be, it'll be somewhere, and it'll be
Yeah.
something. Like
Yeah.
I think the fearlessness comes from not being tied to the outcome. I'm
Yeah.
actually not tied to the outcome. I'm just like, okay, let's put this out there. Let's talk to more people. That one person, that one conversation, if I can see people's shoulders drooping, them being seen, them being heard, them being understood, or if I'm learning something. I've never been a social media person. I don't know the first thing about like doing things on so like I have my own page obviously, but the simplest thing, the amount of joy I have gotten from just learning how to do like editing of reels and recording content. I'm like, whoa, like I'm suddenly like, I'm just like, I love learning. Like, I love that stage. I've always been someone who's like, I love being at zero. And then suddenly, when you're at 100 and you know
Yeah.
something so well, and you look back and you're like, oh man, like there was a time where I
Yeah.
didn't know this at all. And so I love those. Like, so I think I'm just really enjoying the learning.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it alone, I have days of like severe demotivation. But then, yeah, it's all part and parcel of the whole thing. So I think just it feels very, it feels right. It feels like the template is my own, and it feels like betting on myself.
Yeah.
Like I said, those four lessons I mentioned, and the way that I'm able to love myself and listen to myself and believe in myself today is what's enabled it.
Yeah. And a more practical note, what does a regular day look like for you now, balancing work on Matrescence India, motherhood, and a little bit of time for yourself, if at all?
It's hard. It's really hard. I'd be lying if I said that it's um yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I am happy with all of the decisions that have led me here. Let me clarify. So I actually, when I decided to take a step back from a full job and like the demands of like a conventional paid job, a part of that was also about Avi's growing up, and I want to be there more, and I want that connection time. I want that, kind of undistracted time. And it's true. It's been really rewarding to know what it's like to not have your mind even subconsciously on anything else. I know you will relate, right? Like there's no deadline, there's no person you're accountable to. Like even in the moment where I'm with him at an unscheduled time, these are really small things, but they feel so good to just be able to, and again, immensely privileged. Um, but at the same time, like I I think you I don't want to try and pursue balance, because there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah.
But I do feel often I feel like, okay, I've decided to Matrescence India as part-time. Like I want to be part-time, or maybe you can't really be a part-time parent. Like I'm a full-time mother and I want to do a part-time work on Matrescence India. My husband has a full-time job and we're kind of figuring that out. Um, but I do really also feel like sometimes I miss being able to just for 48 hours do nothing but think about Matrescence India. That's something I'm still
Yeah.
negotiating. Like I'm
Yeah.
still trying to like calibrate that in my mind of like what does it do to my motivation? What does it do to my ability to push through? I miss momentum. I think I have momentum and then it just goes
Suddenly,
down.
yeah.
It's really hard because, and also like when you have such a clear vision, and I know you resonate because we've spoken and I've read some of your stuff around this. When you want to do that momentum, and the only reason is because you are actually stepping away into another role, you just can't do both. So I'm I am actually needing to therefore make a few decisions about our the way that we divide responsibilities in the house, for example, and those kinds of conversations that you need to have with your own support network. But some of the things that I think really help is again your village that you build, right? Like in today's world, because we're living in such nuclear setups, like there is this wonderful place called Koro, which you're familiar with, right?
Yeah.
Koro is this, it's run by Tena. She is just the absolute champion for mothers that there is. She's been a fantastic friend and support system for me. I'm able to go there and just zone in and work. It's
Hmm.
workspace on one floor, it's a play area on another floor. Apart from the fact that it allows me to bring my son, even when I'm able to go there
Yeah.
just by myself, you're surrounded by the right people. Like in the absence of a team that works with you, that's great to have like these other fellow parents, new parents, and Tena and her energy being able to like help you. So I think over time I've been able to realize that look, if I need to do this, I need to derive that energy from elsewhere. I will get up and leave my house to be able to do it. Otherwise, at home, I will get pushed into doing housework, and then that doesn't quite cut it. But like last month, it was the Sarah holiday. all parents know last month was like a crazy, crazy whirlwind. The Sarah 1 week holiday, 2 weeks into school, Diwali being
Bali.
another week holiday. And so I very ambitiously and very confidently was like, yeah, my son and I will go to Goa. We have so many friends there, and we will go, and it'll just be my son and I. And, I'll probably make some content on the side, and of course, we'll have a blast. And it was a blast. I had a wonderful time with him, but I was so exhausted. I was mentally, physically, like completely drained. It was so hard to
Yeah.
just solo parent that whole time. It was so hard. And so we had our moments, but it meant like I got nothing done work wise. And if it were a week, it would have been okay. But then I just ended up having a whole month of a lot of like festivities and family and travel. And by the end of that month, I was very, very depleted.
Yeah.
I felt like as a mother, I had done everything. Um, but then as a professional, I felt very, very I really felt very low. So then it was like, the decision of, okay, next 45 days we don't travel. And I set up and I prioritize and I do what I need to for Matrescence India. So I think that's just how it's going to be. But I would be lying if I said that I've struck that balance. It's very hard. I feel
Yeah.
guilty I feel guilty when my son's back home in the evening, and sometimes all I want is to just be able to sit in my room and like write or read or so figuring it out.
Yeah. And speaking of that, how do you carve out time for yourself? Do you manage to carve out time for yourself?
I think that the way that I have been able to carve out time for myself has actually been so far in terms of rest. I
Hmm.
am someone who didn't like I said, right? Like taking naps or listening to my body in that sense was not a thing. And now I think that the baby step I've been able to take has been like sometimes at least 2, 3 times a week. Like when I'm putting my son to sleep, I will go to sleep with him, which is
Yeah.
great. Like 8:39, I'm in bed and I wake up the next morning at 7 with him, and I feel so good. So I think right now, I think I would have only accomplished the rest part. I have realized recently, this month itself, that um, I am not still very good at prioritizing my own well-being because I have these, and there's something deeper. It's something that I need to work on. But when it comes to physical health, I think that's the thing that is my next project to try and work through because that feels neglected. I don't feel physically strong. Nutritionally, I've had this whole, it's great, right? Like these post mid 30s onward, your life and your body is just like one thing after the other. So I've had these like perimenopause symptoms, and now I'm just like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. So I'm doing a set of like tests to figure that out. But it's real, and it's again hormonal health, another part of what we just don't know until it hits you. So I think for me, it's that's still a struggle. It's the the being kinder to myself, being able to speak kindly to myself, manage my guilt, like that feels like a huge win. And
Yeah.
that actually feels like a very big win when it comes to my own well-being. When it
Mhm.
comes to taking out time for myself, like I said, I think I have prioritized 2, 3 things. One is like that Koro space, like just being able to have a great space I can zone in and do my work, as well as Copper and Close is another wonderful place here. Sarah
Yeah.
runs it. She also has been such a fabulous sort of support system. These two have become my happy place, my place, which my third spaces.
Hmm.
And they feel and they don't feel like I said, I moved to Bangalore when I was pregnant, right? So we didn't really get time to build a community as such. It's only
Yeah.
in the past 6 months that I feel like I've invested and nurtured a community. And so these third spaces feel like home. I know
Yeah.
the menu, I know what I'm gonna have, I know everyone there by name. It's a very special feeling of being able to go there. And so I actually feel very much in my element and I feel like myself there. And Studio by Corporate Clothes also has some workout which every once a couple of in a couple of weeks I will try and go do and feel good about. So I think that's where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And how has your relationship with your body changed through all of this? Pregnancy, birth, postpartum healing, and now?
Yeah, like I said, I think completely. I think so much respect for what our bodies do and what they're capable of. I really, I mean, there's so much more that than we know and we talk about when it comes to our bodies. So, like I said, like that innate wisdom, the fact that they just function the way they do, they are the most sophisticated machines to exist. That
Yeah, they
actually,
are.
now with all of the research on gut and like your gut health and your gut and brain connection, um, so in that sense, like I said, I think one is cognitively that I understand and respect the body and its functions, and again, even things like all of the mini science of breastfeeding or growing the child, like the actual things that your body
Yeah.
is doing during that period, which I won't launch into right now, but also really fun to know and learn and talk about. Um, but I think it's like I said, I am able to listen to my body more. I am able, like I would have actually, as an example, right, this whole perimenopause thing, I would have probably not even realize my body is going through this. I
Yeah.
would have like just been like, okay, hot flashes, fine, whatever. Like I would have like, night sweats or The reason I got into all this is because I went and worked out on the first day of my period. I went to play pickleball and I nearly fainted. And that's never happened because I've always had fairly easy periods. And I never thought that you need to behave a certain way based on your
Yeah.
cycle. Now, at this age, it's like I am, like at 36 years old is when you realize that your menstrual cycle has such a huge impact on everything, right? So when I went and I nearly fainted, and then I have a sister-in-law who has endured endometriosis, and then she was like, "Hey, we guys are in a very, very, very bad place when it comes to understanding our hormonal health," and then that went into like understanding it better. So I think those things, like I feel like even just being able to like begin to understand, to treat my
Yeah.
body with that respect, to listen, and to if it's feeling exhausted, rest. I would give myself a very, very hard time about resting before. I
Yeah.
would really be like, all you've done is slept all day. Like I just had this, Amy from the Mama Rising program calls it the inner mean mama.
Hmm.
We all have an inner mean mama.
You keep talking about it.
That's true on the group as well, yeah. Because we have this inner mean mama, and before that, you have like an inner mean like person who's kind of trying to bring you down. And my inner mean mama would really just feel like I'm failing in some way if I'm resting. So
Yeah.
now at least in those ways, I think I definitely have that respect for my body. Like I said, from fear to faith. I kind of when I feel like I can't control something and cognitively I just feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I just surrender to my body. The one thing that I want to work a little bit more on is somatic healing. Like actually, I think there's a way to go there in understanding what all is stored in my body and how I can release it.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if you were to sit across from your pre-parent self before Ravi, before Matrescence India, what would you tell her?
Whew, hold on tight. It's a roller coaster. um, be kind, be gentle. It's gonna be okay. Just
Yeah.
just ride the storm. Um, there's that part of me, of course, I would comfort and be like, and then there's the other part of me, which is the nerd that I am, and I would be like, hey, this is Matrescence. This is everything you need to know. So then I would just be like, here, take care of yourself. This is the manual that doesn't exist. And then hopefully the postpartum would be easier, which I'm hoping to do now for many other women. But
Yeah.
I think just that. I think that considering how empowered and connected and resourced I was, I think I would just be like, even if I wanted to like break the truth, I would still be like, it's coming. Just hold on tight. A that, and then during, I would have definitely been like, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better because honestly, when you're in the throes of it, and I'm saying this
Yeah.
to another who's listening, you really feel like, and legitimately so. I don't want to be like the people who say it'll pass. Um, and it's very hard in that moment to see how and when it will pass. And even if it will, your emotions and your fear and difficulties in that period are very valid.
Yeah.
Um, but I would still, to myself, you can only say that to yourself. I don't think anyone can. But I think I would just give myself that kindness to be like, there will be a day when this would make sense. There will be a day when it'll lead you to, yeah, just to transform you into who you're meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me, you had mentioned that it's very interesting how you learned about the concept of matrescence. So tell us about that.
So I mean, it's a lot of people learn about it in after becoming a parent, from what I've understood, and easily 80-90% of the people who I say the word to, even if they are parents, are like, huh, what?
Mm.
Like, no way does it like really, and also it's a tough word, so people will inevitably spell it or say it wrong. Um, I for like a couple of months actually, in like I said, in those quiet rooms when I was like contact napping with my child and thinking about it, I was creating what something like this could look like. So every time I would say it, I would put, like in my head, practice it like I'm explaining it to a parent or talking to a medical professional or to my own partner. And I would keep saying, pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum, pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum, because that's what I knew, right? So I would be like, oh, mothers need to be better supported in pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum. Or, oh, our bodies do fantastic things in pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum. And
Yeah.
then I started feeling like every time I was writing and saying that, I was like, this is a mouthful. Like, this is, like a lot. So it just, and then add preconception to it. So then I was like, okay, preconception, conception, pregnancy, childbirth. And I was like, I can't, like, it's just too much. That's where the pursuit of trying to just find a word that like encompasses it, right? So I found perinatal, and perinatal is still a little more restrictive. And anyway, then that's kind of when I stumbled on Matrescence, and it became so much more than just a name for that phase. It was, I was looking for a categorization of that
Yeah.
life, and then of course it was just so much more. But that's really how it started. And there's this fantastic book called Matrescence by Lucy Jones. Lucy Jones, yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
I heard this word because of the book, and one guest, Kismet, on my podcast, she talked about it. She was reading the book then, and she was 7 years postpartum at that point, and she said, "Now I understand what is happening to me," and things like that. And I was like, "Okay, I have to look it up." And I remember when you talked to me about it, do you know this word? And I said, "Yeah, I know this word." I was like kind of, gloating that I know this word.
Yeah.
But if you had asked me 2 weeks prior to that conversation, I wouldn't have known this word. So yeah, I'm so glad that you're doing, so much to bring this all at least in common knowledge. If and then change is, of course, an outcome of that which you are not worried about. So yeah,
I'm
and
hopeful about it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And for my last question for today to you, Natasha, if you think back to the version of you who was 6 months postpartum, navigating depression and exhaustion, what would you tell her now?
I'll just give her a really big hug,
Oh,
genuinely. What I would tell her then would be sleep,
hmm.
just sleep. Because I really think that sleep deprivation was a huge contributor to my depression. And
Hmm.
now there's a lot more studies coming out about deprivation, sleep deprivation and depression. I would, if it was back then, I would just be like sleep. But today and even back then, I think just give her a really big hug. But Neha, I think I was really starved for some TLC. And again, no one's fault. But
Yeah,
it just there were times, it brings out this very raw human side of you. I
yeah,
think you've just gone through this enormous thing. I think I was very, very starved for TLC. So I would just give myself
yeah.
a really big hug. I would give myself some gifts. I would just spoil myself.
When you say that, it just tells me that, how systemically, this is such a failure on to and such unfair thing to do to mothers, that every time you meet a new mother and a baby, you'll ask, how's the baby doing? You'll never ask, how's the mother doing? And that reminds me of an instance. My husband is as much uh, the primary caregiver as I am in the whole bringing up of our child. And I think it was 2.5 months postpartum. We were reeling from the lack of sleep and everything. And we were just spiraling. And everything that you said about those, after the blissful month hits the storm, we were right in the middle of that storm. And we have a friend. She texted my husband to ask, how are you doing? And he literally broke down, and he was like, this is the first time that someone has asked me that question. Because it's always the baby, the mother, and then no one else.
Yeah.
It was the father. And I was like, oh my God. And one of my friends who came to meet us, everybody brings gifts for the babies. She brought a dress for me and for my postpartum body. Like, she didn't bring me a dress for my earlier body, she brought me a dress which would fit me in my postpartum body. And I was like, oh my God, how thoughtful, how thoughtful. And I think of that and I think nothing could have meant more than that, in that time, in that phase, when you feel so rejected by everything, so isolated, in that moments to feel that kind of love.
What small
It's
things, right? Like it just, and I think back to before I became a mom, I think I also probably didn't know better.
yes,
I don't think that I even, if I saw mothers in the workplace or if I saw a close friend, I mean, yeah, it would very much be about, and it's all very well intended. Like it would be about,
yes,
but no, you're so right. I think just, and that's what I mean. Like I was genuinely starved for that. I was just starved for attention. Um, and in a way that, like, in a way of it, like feeding this very kind of raw human part of you, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. When someone comes to meet you, how they rush to take the baby off you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm just left bereft, not only am I not getting the hugs,
Yeah.
the person who I was holding, that also has been taken away from me. It's that kind of feeling, and I feel you. I just so feel you, and oh
You know,
my
I'm,
God.
because we're talking about this and it's such a vulnerable thing that I also feel like sharing. I think another thing that I think hit very, very close was photographs. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's happened with you, but I would feel like this. You're taking a lot of photographs of other people with your child and your partner with your child and everything. And somewhere through the first year when I was going through it, I don't know why, but the word erasure kept coming to mind because I was anyway feeling this erasure of like who I am, who I was. And then when you
yeah,
also see that in photos and then like and like you said, there's that erasure when people are asking about the baby but not you or
yeah,
talking about her. So I think that was a very prominent thought in terms of yeah, erasure and how it manifests in these ways. It manifests in how many photos you're in and manifests in how you're being asked. Interestingly, I reached a point in my postpartum where I started every time a friend was coming and they would be like, what does the baby need? What does the baby like? I started saying, the baby has everything that they need. I take care of it. Please bring me a gift. I have actually shamelessly, happily asked people to be like, just bring me a gift. Because at that point, I was so desperate, but also not. I had already, I think, shed the guilt of prioritizing myself. So I was
yeah.
just me, just focus on me. You so I was like, sometimes you just really have to ask and be in an environment that allows you to ask.
Yeah. Just for that, I want to experience postpartum again, just so that I can do it better. But I said I asked my last question to you already, but I will ask you another last question. If you could leave one message for other mothers listening today, something that captures who you are now and what you stand for, what would that be?
Sorry, is this a message for the
Other
mothers?
mothers or other parents?
But not about me, right? Like it's a message I have
Yes.
for them. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there are so many things, Neha, I want to say, but if I were to choose, the crux of it all comes down to you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
What you are experiencing is a universal thing. Unfortunately, it isn't you that is messing up. This is a disservice being done to you that we don't have better support systems for you right now. You are not alone. Everything you're feeling is valid. Every single thing, whether it's guilt or shame or rage or sadness or happiness, please stop measuring yourself against the barometer that has been set by a very, very flawed system, a rigged system, and society. Everything you're feeling is valid. Please reach out to me. I will love to
Yeah.
put you. I'd love to just give you the hug you need, but I promise you that we build better systems.
Yeah. Natasha, thank you for this. Truly. What I love most about your story is how you've turned something deeply personal into something deeply purposeful. The fact that you said you're purpose driven, and you've taken your own experience of transition and pain and used it to light a path for others. And that, I think, is the essence of what we try to hold space for here on Parenthood. Your honesty, your clarity, and your tenderness gives so many women permission to name what they are feeling and to ask for the support that they deserve. Thank you for being here and sharing so openly and doing the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Thank you for the space. I love the work that you're doing. Can't wait for much, much more of it and to do a lot of this together. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us this week. If you found this conversation meaningful, please share it with a friend or fellow parent or a parent to be who might need to hear it today. Follow Natasha's journey on Matrescence India, details of which can also be found in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to Parenthood and leave us a quick review. It helps the community grow. Until next time, take care. This is Neha Garg signing off. Bye bye.